Yeah, so Steve Edwards is his name, and he recently finished his 1000th marathon. That's a tongue twister, eh?
Yeah.
He's become just the 51st person to do so, but along the way, he also claimed the Guinness World Record for fastest aggregate time to complete 1,000 marathons. So his average finishing time is 3:21:57, which kind of, that's really impressive. It blows a lot of other regular runners' PRs out of the water. And he's completed that over 43 years, and he is now 61.
Right.
So
I love the little bit in your story where basically this, like the kind of the origin of all of this, of his insane odyssey to run 1,000 marathons began with, like, ironically him saying as a teenager after running his first marathon, like he uttered the words like never again or something like that at the finish line.
yeah, he was walking down the stairs the next day and he was like, never again. Became addicted to the runner's high, like everyone does.
But this is nuts, right? Okay, first of all, I have to admit, I did not know there were 50 people or 51 people in the world who've run 1,000 marathons. I know people keep track of this stuff. I know that there's an organization that sort of that tracks. You can self-submit how many marathons you've run, and there's the Century Club, 100 marathons, 200, 500, whatever. I did not know there was 51 people that have done 1,000 marathons. That's bananas. And like 3:21 to average for 1,000 marathons.
And do you want to know what makes that even more impressive? So I recently found out while I was, making my show notes for today, that he also has this blood disorder called beta thalassemia minor. Might have said that a bit wrong, but I'm no doctor.
Okay.
So essentially, it affects like the oxygen carrying capacity of his blood cells, and so he's essentially living in a mild state of anemia or iron deficiency permanently, which, as a lot of runners know, is kind of like a massive fear for all of us, is having low iron, because it just crashes your energy. So I think that kind of just I found that out, and that just kind of blew my mind, made it all the more impressive.
Or like completely and totally masochistic and insane. Like just running that many marathons, period, and having to do that. I think about this with people just with like a run streak as a simplified version of this, right? Just committing yourself to running every single day and never taking a day off, and like trying to hobble your way through injury, or like a streak where you're kind of like low energy or down or high stress in life. Because the vast majority of people who do this stuff we're just like, I was going to say like you or I, but you're actually a professional athlete and I am not. So like, just like me, who's like a recreational runner, right? Effectively. So, doing this with like in a perpetual state of anemia sounds like a form of torture. But yeah, so that's like, what is that? 1,000 marathons over 43 years. You did the math on this. It's like,
yeah, so that's a marathon every 13 days for the last 36 years. And then in 1 year, he ran 87 marathons, and that equaled out to a marathon every 4.2 days.
So that's when he was still really eager, and then he's faded to one every couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. But every 4.2 days is absolutely nuts.
Imagine that. Can you imagine just being like, I have to do a marathon more or less every other weekend?
No.
No. That sounds awful.
Even thinking about running one marathon is a lot.
It's a daunting task. Yeah. I mean, I guess it just becomes he has a different relationship with it than you or I would, right? Like he probably just sees it as like, I have to go out and run my 26.2 or better long run in order to keep things moving along here. I also wonder, like,
they were all official marathons. They all had to be official marathons. They weren't just runs. They were like, he signed up online and went to the start line. Yeah.
Just finding that number of marathons over the course of 43 years is its own full-time job, really.
Yeah.
But
he had a job.
But he had a job.
He was an IT guy, yeah.
The more we dig into this story, the more kind of complex, really kind of wowing, but also
Yeah.
insane it is. Like,
Yeah.
he must have traveled all over the place, just desperately trying to find a marathon. Like basically any marathon that was within, driving distance or maybe even a short flight, he must have just jumped on over and over and over again.
Yeah. It's insane.
This is a wild one. Yeah. So what do you think's more impressive? 1,000 marathons, the 1,000 marathons with the time, or the fact that he ran like 80 whatever, because that's also a record, right? The 80 something.
Yeah, that was the
87?
most in a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a tough one.
I think
go ahead.
I think it's the time. I think it's I think the fact that he did 1,000 and averaged better than most people have for a lifetime PR is that's a real commitment. That means that a lot of those marathons he probably ran really well.
Well, I actually found an interview after he had completed I believe it was 903 of his marathons.
Okay.
And he said at that time, he had clocked already 300 sub 315s, and most of his marathons, and around 750 of them at that time, had been sub 330.
Wow.
So it's absolutely insane.
What's his PR, I wonder?
That was one I couldn't find. I'd love to just find a list of all the races he's done.
I always wonder, it's like this sort of philosophical question for a distance runner. It's like, do you go for quantity or quality? And at what point does the quality become such a daunting pursuit that you give up and you go quantity, right? Where you're like, there's no way I'm going to run better than I ran, X number of years ago when I ran my PR. I'm just going to give up on that. And now I'm going to focus on something else. And in his case, I'm going to focus on just running as many races as I possibly can. I guess he made that decision early though.
I think so. Yeah. I think when he decided to do 87 marathons in a year, he probably made that choice.
He's either the most fascinating running dude to talk to because he's run every marathon you can possibly think of, I imagine. And he's had so many different experiences. Or he's the ultimate running nerd you want to avoid talking to. One or the other.
Yeah,
I'm not
the
sure
one that lives in a box.
Yeah.